Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, really? Go ahead. I'm Wait a minute. I don't hear myself, though, Carlo.
You're on that cord.
Oh, I'm standing on it. I'm sitting on it. Another inauspicious beginning. Wait a minute here. Okay. So, what happened there? Did I? Oh, but so here we are. Welcome, guys. It's 9/11, which snuck up on me. I didn't realize today was 9/11 till I looked, and it was. Excuse me, I'm still okay. I think we're okay. So, it's 9/11. How long did people? I mean, after Pearl Harbor, did what is that? December? No. Yeah, was that December 7th? Did people forevermore on December 7th, feel they had to revisit it? Up to a point, maybe, huh? They were too busy fighting a war to do commemorations. I don't know. I have nothing to say. We know what it did. We know how it changed the world, our world. Not for the better. And it was a day when we lost a bit of our innocence. Speaking of that, there's a thing going around on Twitter. I retweeted it because I thought it was such a riot. It's like a little 2-year-old, maybe? Three-year-old. I can't tell anybody's age anymore. 3, 4. And she is got a drink in front of her with a straw, and it was this little bit of video was titled "Loss of Innocence," and she's about to take a sip, and what it is well, here, I won't tell you what it is. She sips, this little kid. And the immediate, you talk about the expressiveness of the human face, the immediate reaction is one of disgust. It's so negative. She recoils physically. And her reaction goes on for about, I'd say, 5 seconds. She's, she even throws her head back and if I'm remembering this right, and sort of is engaged in some kind of you can't imagine. You would, what is in that drink? And then she comes back. Apparently it's gotten through, it's hit her stomach, and she's done reacting to that initial taste, though it's more than taste. And she goes back to the straw, and I think there's a little smile, and bang. Her lips close around that straw, and she's about to do it again, which is mind-blowing given this unbelievable negative, seemingly, reaction she had to it. So, where her body is almost convulsed. And yet, after she, bang, right back to it. I think it is the most brilliant kind of metaphor for the attraction to us of things that maybe we know not to be good. Our body says, no. But there's something there that we got to try that again. It's Coca-Cola. It's Coca-Cola. It was almost like it's almost like a little metaphor for addiction. I don't know. It's so bizarre. And then once you know it's Coke, you start to understand maybe the visceral physical reaction, because she's never felt something that actually burns you. You know? Coke. It burns your throat when it hits it. There's acid in there. It's like, blah. And then there's the carbonation. It's more than taste. There are a number of physical sensations which you initially recognize as negatives. And yet, bang, right back for more. I just think it's the most fascinating little, probably 18-second clip of humanity. Just saying. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those days when I'm just sort of stream of consciousness. If you'd like to come down the stream with me today, well, that's what we're doing. I don't know where to go first. As usual. I guess Irma. So, I have a sense of that some people are like disappointed in Irma. Hey, babe, you got such a build-up. I mean, the promotion was so intense. And I'm not sure, babe, you delivered. It's sort of like when somebody's telling you, oh, you've got to see this movie. It's unbelievable. And then every critic is raving. So that by the time you actually go to see the movie, you're sort of let down. Oh, yeah, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless the entire state of Florida had literally been blown away, I don't know if Irma could have lived up to its hype. So people are already apparently complaining about the meteorologist, the weatherman. You never get it right. They said here, then they said there, then they said there, and then in the end, and every time I hear that kind of thing, I do have to admit, it drives me crazy. Let me just say this about the weather people. They're doing the best they can with the tools they have. And they're saving lives. I just want to say that. And we should be grateful that we live, and I mentioned this last week, that we live at a time when we're not blindsided by a monster storm, ever. We watch it coming. And then, with whatever powers we have through science, we attempt to understand, we can't control it, attempt to understand where that monster is heading. And if you think about it, they had it pretty much right. They fudge because they're realistic. So in that cone they kept drawing, that big sort of, in here is where it's going to be, is pretty amazing. And as I said, 100 years ago, you wouldn't even know. One day it'd be nice, and the next day, you, your house, and everything you know have blown away. So that's why people aren't killed as much by these things. It's pretty, the storm might have been the biggest, but the death toll, Now, the property damage will be huge because, of course, humans idiotically continue to build more and more and more on these wetlands and the shores, the shoreline, even as the ocean continues to push that shoreline in. It's very odd human behavior. I just want to say, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay to help somebody rebuild on the same spot. Donald friggin' Trump insures Mar-a-Lago through the government, taxpayer-financed flood insurance. The gazillionaire. If Mar-a-Lago sustained some damage, and I suppose it might have, yes, you're going to pay for it. I don't want to. I think, if you want to live in such a tenuous situation, then you bear the responsibility. You bear the costs. And if you can't afford to do that, granted, that leaves the coastlines to the super rich, but they pretty much own it anyway. But why the hell should we bail them out or help them rebuild? And we will. You're going to be doing it in Houston, all along the Texas coast, and you're going to be doing it for Donald Trump and all the other rich people there who own oceanfront property. Poor people don't own oceanfront property. The funniest thing, well, actually, it took my breath away. I sort of looked like the kid taking her first sip of Coke. I couldn't believe, I still can't, but I realize that this is the kind of thing that's maybe inside baseball. It's only somebody in broadcasting, or maybe even just television broadcasting, who would understand how unbelievable this thing I saw was. Here's what it was. It was, I think, Saturday night. I was checking on Irma. Oh, I had CNN on. And I was also doing other things. So at one point, I heard something. I wasn't looking at the TV, but I heard something that, I had to see what in the name of God was being talked about. And it was one of these fast-talking, QVC type guys, and he had this gizmo that he was selling, and it was to clean floors or something. But I didn't remember the coverage going to a commercial, but this was clearly a commercial, and yet it was so odd because the thing he was touting, just 1995, by the way, was the hurricane spin broom. This hurricane spin broom, now, I gotta tell you, if you're running the placement of commercials, for instance, you don't let a commercial for, fly the friendly skies. You don't let a commercial like that run in a newscast that plays a story about a crash, an airplane crash. You don't go from airplane crash to fly the friendly skies. That's of no benefit to the people in the friendly skies. You don't do it. The hurricane spin broom, only 1999, I was wrong by 4 cents, is the same kind of thing. During wall-to-wall coverage of the destruction being wrought by this hurricane, all of a sudden we're being told to buy the hurricane spin broom. And here's what the guy said. It leaves nothing behind. I'm looking at this, And I'm thinking, is this a joke? Did somehow the channel change and I'm looking at Saturday Night Live? What the hell is going on? Here was another line. It sweeps up everything in its path. The Hurricane Spin Broom, 1990. And then from that back to the hurricane, the real hurricane, sweeping up everything in its path and leaving nothing behind. Oh, my God. I was, pun intended, I was blown away. It was as if The Onion, the satirical site, it was as if The Onion hacked into the Irma coverage. And while you're watching the hurricane, how about buying your own hurricane spin broom? Obliterate everything in sight. Jeez. Whoever let that commercial in to that coverage, anyway, it's the kind of thing that ain't done. So I saw this one moment of self-awareness, which is unusual, happen to an on-air person during live coverage. This wonderful moment of self-awareness on the part of a meteorologist who was excitedly talking about the European model versus the American model and how they're starting to come together, and it looks now, and drawing his lines on things, and if it goes here, if it takes a slight bzzz, and it goes there, and blah, 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 blah. And he was talking about the incredible difference 30 miles could make for people and their property. And all of a sudden, he sort of stopped. And he said, for us, and he was talking to the anchor, he said, for us, this almost is sort of an exciting game, isn't it? Wow. A moment of self-awareness, of self-reflection on live television. This is something like sort of a game. He was acknowledging that his excitement as a meteorologist was, wow, this is the most exciting thing he'd ever covered. But he said, but for the people who are watching this, who are in this cone, this isn't a game. And while we might have fun trying to pinpoint the exact, having bragging rights to saying, I knew there'd be this westerly tick, whatever. He says, we are dying to know, where's the eye going to be? But while we're saying it's here, it's there, it might be there, he said, people are going nuts. They don't know which way to go. And there's plenty of stories about people, when it was going to hit Miami, heading west. And then, oops, it looks like going to hit the westerns. Zip, they go back east. And he acknowledged how all of a sudden he was in a different place. He really was in a different place. And that these up-to-the-minute updates and the ability to track the storm, while helpful, yes, also was helpful only to a point. An inexact science, exciting to him, terrifying, maddening to people told to get the hell out. Which way. So that blew me away. Now, back sort of to coverage again. I must say that the people already making fun of reporters standing out in the, wind, which does seem silly to me. I think television news in these events is frankly in a no-win territory. They're damned if they do. They're damned if they don't. Television is a lifeline for a lot of people. This is how the powers that be, FEMA, and all the authorities get the word out to people, what to do, what not to do. This is, in fact, journalism at its core, disseminating information that will help people, in this case, even save people. And so we expect that they will be there. We expect that they will, with all of the resources available, head down while everybody else is heading up and tell us what's happening. But because we're in a 24/7 cycle of news, what's happening is the same thing that happened last hour. So they have to keep filling. And of course, they end up standing outside to tell you shouldn't, which seems a little silly. Look at the power of this raging wind. They're doing it so you won't. But come on, human nature is a lot of people are going to react to that by saying, hey, man, I got to try that. Look at the strength of that wind. She's not blowing away, so I'm going outside and do it. I don't know. They argue about whether or not they're putting. I'm not aware of any reporter dying on assignment in a hurricane. I might be wrong, but so people make fun of them for that. On the other hand, as I said, I think damned if they do and damned if they don't. And in general, they do a hell of a job, I think, educating all of us about the power of these kinds of storms and helping the authorities steer people to shelter, answer questions, all that kind of stuff. Okay? So even though they're able to pinpoint things to a 50-mile range or something, that's really pretty extraordinary for meteorology. It is. But for humans, it ain't good enough yet. It ain't. And would require a lot more, research to know how to. Ultimately, Irma decided where she was going when she wanted to decide where she was going. She didn't care about any models that had been done in some laboratory somewhere. She was a very strong entity in her own right, not given to following directions. Okay, what we got? Margaret, I can't, you got to do more than a subject line. I can't see the rest of that. Laura writes, the federal government is the only one who offers flood insurance. Yeah, because no insurer, private insurer in their right mind would offer flood insurance to those people in Florida. Can't make money because they're going to get flooded. So the federal government stepped into this money-losing endeavor. And I ranted about this last week. This is insanity. If you want to really, if you care about wasting our money, then the government needs to get out of the flood insurance business, as I said. It provides an incentive for rich people to continue to build humongous properties on land that is doomed And so it floods. We pay. They rebuild. It floods. We pay. They rebuild. Why not? They can rebuild. The feds have this program, including, as I said, the president himself makes use of it. I'm sorry. Laura, back to you. She says the flood insurance program is a disaster, too. Oh, I pay flood insurance, and it is 3 times the cost of homeowners coverage from my private insurer. It only covers the structure and not the contents. I hate paying it, and I hate that people everywhere feel the federal government should bail them out in a disaster. Perhaps I would feel differently if I was in a disaster. Yeah, you always feel differently when you're the one when you're the one in need. Laura, right, by the way, my daughter lives in Clearwater. She's safe, but has no power. Well, I just don't understand incentivizing building on land that you know will flood again. Incentivizing it by allowing me and you to pay. Because the federal government has decided it's going to be an insurance company. It don't make no sense to me. It really doesn't. Margaret's tried again. I'm sorry, guys. This computer makes me crazy. It just... I just want to get to Margaret. I'm done. Excuse me. All right. Well, excuse me. Old lady fights with technology. Old lady loses. Margaret writes, during the football game, the Steeler game, commercials ran simultaneously with the game. I don't understand. I still don't understand what you're saying. Okay. Where am I? What am I? What's happening? So I'm so lucky. I missed 60 Minutes last night. Whew. Boy, talk about dodging a bullet. I missed 60 Minutes. I'm not given to watching it with any, religiosity, but no. So I didn't know. I didn't realize that Steve Bannon he was the marquee player. And here's where media makes me insane. Steve Bannon loses his job as the head of the white nationalist, neo-fascist front in Donald Trump's inner circle. General Kelly, the new chief of staff, manages to get him out the door. And there's 60 Minutes, the premier news magazine, immediately rushing to Steve Bannon and giving him, I don't know how long the segment was, 20 minutes, 25 minutes? To talk directly to millions and millions of Americans. He's never had that opportunity before. Here's a guy pushed out of power. I can't think of another situation where somebody who now is not a player in the White House to be given that kind. But you know why? They do it because he's good copy. He's good copy. He draws eyeballs. They make money. And it's why the media, mainstream and otherwise, will continue to afflict us with Donald Trump for the rest of his life and beyond, I'm sure. It's sort of like how the Kennedys still pop up all the time, or Princess Diana. What was that recently? Such a flurry of Princess Diana back in the news. She's dead, gone, but it doesn't matter. She still sells magazines. The Kennedys still sell magazines and bring people eyeballs and dollars and advertising in. And Bannon is a walking train wreck. You know, it strikes me that Hillary Clinton, who's being just lambasted for daring to still be alive, I guess. Anytime anyone pays any attention to her or she speaks up in any way, she's told, shut up, go away, you lost, we're done with you. Steve Bannon, he lost, we ain't done with him. Women are supposed to shut up. Meanwhile, mansplaining, that just keeps on a-coming. So even though he's lost the one position of power, it could well be that with Breitbart, he'll continue to have power because Charlie Rose and 60 Minutes and other news sources give him the power. That's where his power comes from now, not Breitbart, from CBS. And every other reporter and publication that goes running after him because he's good copy. The only way you're going to escape Donald Trump in your lifetime is if he dies before you. That's the only way. He will afflict us all. What he says, what's going on with his friggin' family, his latest stupidity, his whatever. He will be a constant affliction. And he can't do that unless the media plays the game. And the game is, and Donald understands this very well, is called money. Anybody watch the Miss America contest? I was surprised they still do that, huh? So there was a Miss America contest last night, I guess. Would have been better than watching Steve Bannon. And I was thrilled to see Miss North Dakota won, in large part because, you know, that's one of those little states where they never win anything. And, in fact, they had never won a Miss America. And she's very lovely. And she's smart as hell. She's an Ivy League graduate. They don't make Miss Americas like they used to. I don't know. And these contestants, when they ask them the questions and stuff, wow. Let me see what she said. Miss America. I love this. So you got to figure what the audience for the Miss America contest, you would say would be older, right? Traditional, conservative, right? Wouldn't they be? Because who the hell else watches the Miss America contest except people who want to go back to the 50s or something? So you got to figure that's a conservative audience. And this is what blew me away. So Miss America was asked. This is when they're asked questions on stage, so she's not Miss America yet, I guess. She's still Little Miss North Dakota. And she was asked, why they ask these women these political questions is beyond me. But she was asked whether it was wrong to withdraw from the Paris Accords. This is immediately after, of course, she strutted around in high heels and a bikini. I don't know. What the? And do you think that we were correct in getting out of the Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, Miss North Dakota? And she said very directly, first words out of her mouth were, it's a bad decision. There is evidence that climate change is existing, and we need to be at that table. Wow, Miss America. And then she went on to say that she wants to get into politics. She wants to be the governor. And she said that we need more women in government. I like this, Miss America. She said, it's important to have a woman's perspective in health care, on reproduction rights. It's predominantly men making these decisions. That doesn't make sense. Miss America. Also, Miss Texas was asked about Charlottesville, for God's sakes. Yeah, Miss Texas was asked whether that was handled correctly or something. And hell no, she said. She said, I don't have her quote here, but she flat out said something like, no. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here. Miss Texas, again, North Dakota. These people are from red states in a, I think, red state kind of venue, the Miss America pageant, and they're flat out dissing the president. Unbelievable. Or not. So anyway. Do you watch the 9/11 coverage? I have to turn it off. Enough. I know people who were personally impacted, who lost brothers, husbands, fathers. This is a day for them. And I don't know about revisiting the horror, how that helps anybody. I don't understand it. It helps keep us on sort of a war footing, I suppose. Reminds us we're a nation at war, that there's terrorists everywhere, I suppose. And media likes to do that, too. Because nothing better than war, all that stuff. Just great video, sort of like Irma, sort of like Bannon. Not great video. Oh, God. He looks like the portrait of Dorian Gray. I mean, what is with him? He really does. I mean, I don't like to get on people's looks, but he looks like he has like a flesh-eating disease. I mean, he just looks, his eyes are always red-rimmed, and I don't know, he's frightening looking. He looks, his exterior, I think, sort of gives you a little hint at the rot that's inside. It reflects who he is. Okay. Now, Meow. I happened to see this article a while back. Why I'm sharing it today, I don't know. There are a lot of us in Pittsburgh, old-timers, who are annoyed by our mayor's penchant for turning our streets into bicycle paths. And yet, we know that it would be better if there were more bikes and fewer cars. It'd be better for everybody. It'd be better for the planet. But we're stuck in our ways, and we like those big hulking cars of ours that we can jump in and get wherever we want and blah, 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 blah. Anyone who's ever been to the Netherlands, let's take Amsterdam, is blown away by the bicycles. Everybody is on a bike. Everybody, old people, young people, whole families seem to be, piled on. Bikes are everywhere. Cars, not so much. And cars are clearly down the pecking order. Bikes have the right of way everywhere. Bikes and pedestrians. Cars, they're definitely, talk about de-incentivizing. The disincentives for having a car are huge. And consequently, the Netherlands and I believe Denmark are two of the countries, the two leading countries in the world where everybody bikes. And when I was in Amsterdam, the other thing that freaked me out is nobody, and I mean nobody, I did not see one helmet. They're all on bikes and nobody's wearing a helmet. So the fourth largest city in the Netherlands is Utrecht. 330,000 people. It is one of the most bike-friendly places in the universe. And it just keeps building up its bike infrastructure. It has more bike parking lots and buildings, than car. They invest tons of money, and they say the money comes back to them in reduced health costs, social costs, all kinds of other things. There are more bikes than people in the Netherlands. So there's a bike for every person, or more than one. Deadly bike accidents have decreased substantially because if you get the cars off the roads, and this, again, in a country that nobody wears a helmet in. You got to figure people who ride bikes are also healthier, right? They actually now have apps on their smartphone that a biker can just look at immediately and see where there is a space to park their bikes. Well, we can do that too, I think, with cars, but they do it because it's hard to find a place to park your bike. There's so many of them. And I bring this up because I happened to see this, and it occurred to me that so many Americans don't ever get out of the country. So their assumption is that the way we do things is the way you do these things. And we never see that other countries, other people, have come up with different models, different ideas, and they've put them in play. And you know what? It's better than what we got. Now, climate has something to do with if this is feasible. Amsterdam is flat, So riding a bike is no problem. However, they're starting to introduce a lot more bikes that also have an electric component. So older people can ride longer. So if they encounter a hill, they can just let the bike take them instead of pedaling themselves. I have to admit, I've been thinking of getting one of those. Bikes. The Netherlands. Doing things better than us. And that brings me to something that the receptionist here gave me the other day. He subscribes to National Geographic. And he wanted me specifically to take a look at not the article on addiction, which is the front, but an article about the Netherlands and how they have an entirely different way of growing crops, including animals like poultry, than we do. And this article about how the Dutch do agriculture is mind-blowing. It bears no resemblance to what we do. None. You don't even recognize that's a farm. You don't even recognize their farms. And let me tell you this. Their way is so much smarter, so much better. They're farming almost completely indoors now, so that things can go 24/7 with total control of environment. Think of that. It takes up less land. The yield, let's say you're doing potatoes. You get more potatoes from 1 square foot of a Dutch farm operation. You get so many more potatoes than you get the way America agribusiness does things. And guess what? They're not using chemicals. Oh, here, I just happened to turn here. It says, the global average yield for potatoes per acre is 9 tons. So that's the average around the world for potato growers. You have an acre, it's going to produce 9 tons of potatoes. In this one farmer's field in Holland, his fields reliably produce more than 20 tons per acre. The average is 9. America's is well below that. Below 20. And they're doing 20. Why aren't we doing this? That people are starving in this world is beyond belief. If there were concerted efforts to truly... It says here, Netherlands has become an agricultural powerhouse, the second largest global exporter of food per dollar value after the United States. It's a little teeny country with only a fraction of the land that we have. They've just figured out how to do agriculture more efficiently. And are we listening? No, not so much. To grow a tomato in the United States, it takes 15 gallons of water per pound to grow tomatoes. In the United States, we use 15 gallons, actually a little bit more, per pound of tomatoes. The Netherlands, 1 gallon. China, 34 gallons. The Netherlands, 1 gallon of water to make what the Chinese take 34 gallons, what we take 15 gallons. When these little countries figure out better ways, why doesn't everybody just run and do what they're doing? I don't understand it. They use drones. These places are, they got cows in little carousels, merry-go-rounds. One operator can milk up to 150 cows an hour, which is so beyond what anything. And by the way, all of their stuff is more humane. Totally humane. Science. Science. People are dying of starvation. And these guys, here's a farm. It's sitting on top of a warehouse. That farm is producing more product. They just have greenhouses all over the country, on top of buildings. Buildings like the high-rises around here. Floor after floor after floor. Let me show you a picture, a night picture of a farming area. You're seeing more than one farm here. All of that light, I don't have a monitor, so I don't know if you're seeing this. All of those lights are farms, because that's the way they look. The dark spot is, guess, where people, they're not farming in those dark places. Everything's done indoors, controlled, solar powered, 24/7. And you know what? All the workers are biking to the farms too, and biking away. For people who think the United States is so smart and that everything we do is better than anybody else, may I suggest National Geographic? Seriously. Mind-blowing. Okay. What we got? I'm looking for... Oh, hang on. This computer is really making me crazy today. Hang on. Iceland also has fantastic greenhouses. A lot of countries do now. That's from Margaret. Yeah. Us? Not so much. We are so behind the curve. It's unbelievable. And you'll never know it unless you get up and get out of this country. Just for a vacation. Go and see the mass transit in the rest of the world. Go and see schools in the rest of the world. Go and see how they farm in the rest of the world. Henry writes, if I could switch the topic for a moment, I'd like to vent about the Equifax hack. Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Over the weekend, we discovered that my wife, my daughters, and I were all affected. So was I. There's a number. One of you sent me this thing where you go to a website, you type in, you give them the last five or six digits. You practically give them your social security number and another piece of information. I forget what. Maybe your last name. And then within 2 seconds, they feed it into their database. And what comes up is, yes. Yes. I guess, yeah, you're, all that information we have on you was, yep, you were compromised. But let me just explain this, Henry. Somebody went to that site, and for the last 5 or 6 digits on their social security number, they put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for the name, they put test. And they hit enter. And guess what came up? Yes, your information has been compromised. I tell you this so that maybe you can have a moment where you might relax for a second. They're telling everybody that. Now, since 80 million people or something were affected, the odds are pretty damn good that you could be. Anyway, Henry goes on. Equifax can do nothing except offer you a year of identity theft monitoring. Right. Oh, thank you so much. And so many people have been affected that they've had to schedule your sign-up time for the monitoring service. I was able to sign up today, but my kids are scheduled to sign up tomorrow, my wife on Wednesday. I think the thing you're really supposed to do is freeze your credit reporting. You can do that. You can just freeze so that nobody can touch it. I don't, listen, you think I understand this stuff. I don't. But the Post-Gazette yesterday had a nice little, or Saturday, had a nice little article about what to do, who to call, how to do it, blah, 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 blah. Henry says, I realize there's nothing else I can do but take more Xanax, but Trump already has me maxed out on that. Can I mix Xanax and bourbon? I suspect not, but I don't know. Okay, Equifax has taken my anxiety to new levels. Well, Henry, the good news is you're hardly alone, right? You've been compromised. I've been compromised. The dog's been compromised. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7's been compromised. Welcome to the brave new world of 2017. Jeez. I don't know what to tell you. Roger. So many double standards. You're right on how about Hillary's supposed to shut up, but it's acceptable for Bannon to be put back into the public eye immediately, right? Hillary is just a typical woman who can't keep her mouth shut, but nothing like that is said about Bannon. My wife and I see every day that it's actually construction working dudes who are long-winded complainers and gossipers. Being men, they get a pass, while the stereotype paints women who just need to shut up and stop being hysterical. Hillary, along with Pelosi and Elizabeth Warren, are often described as such and are often being told by Republican leadership to settle down. Oh, did you see that one damn Republican congressman? They were on the floor of the House and they were having an argument about something or other. I mean, they were talking. And he kept he referred to a woman congressperson as young lady. She went ballistic, and I am so happy. For one thing, she's 51 years old. You don't call, anytime you call, you know who used to do it, and it made me crazy, is Doug Hirth, would often call older women who called his show young lady. And it's condescending. It's a way that men minimize whatever a woman is saying. Young lady. Let's see. Laura says, I was compromised on Equifax. My husband was not. Hackers will probably wait until the year of free is up and then use all our information. Yeah, whatever. You know what? I don't think there's any way anymore to secure yourself. You go live in a cave. Do what Ted Kaczynski did. Build a little lean-to somewhere in, North Dakota. Who knows? You might bump into Miss America. And, go off the grid. Off the grid! I don't know what else. we can do. Okay. I think that's it. Tomorrow, I think, is my last day here. Wednesday, we're going to try to do it from the Pittsburgh Mills Mall studio, which is still sort of under construction. I happened to go see it on Friday, and I have to tell you that it ain't going to be even as pretty as this at this point. It's still pretty basic. But, things change, and I've learned total patience in this regard. So let's just hope that we can get on the air and that we can take a call or two. That's all I'm asking for, and I'll believe it when I see it, but Wednesday will be the day. So tomorrow's our last day here, probably. And nothing is certain with the Lynn Cullen show. Nothing, okay? So I guess that's it for today. Thanks if you've listened. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.